lives and breathes the Minnesota Vikings.
I don't even know what to say.
Oh my God. I can't be part of this.
Houston, we have a problem.
Playoffs?
I can't be part of this.
Playoffs?
I mean, whatever you want to say.
You lucky suckers.
Luck has nothing to do with it.
The Vikings are going to win!
Oh my God. SKOL Fanatics here with Timmy Weather and Brad. Most boring name in the world.
The weather is not boring. The weather is always changing.
Good. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, anyway, so let's pick up where we were just talking about that play. That was
the game last night, right?
It was pass interference.
I had a hard time watching it. I hate watching the Packers win. So I had to switch off of it every once in a while because I just didn't want to see the Packers win.
I feel bad for you because you're not going to be watching football for a few years then because the Packers are going to continue to win, which is really sad that you. That
is sad. Yeah.
It's too bad, but that was interference.
Which one?
Should have called. Now here's the thing, and they even made the comment. Even if they had called that, there would have been about 42 seconds left. They would have had 4 plays from the 5-yard line. Doesn't mean they wouldn't have gotten in. And even if they got in, they had to go for 2, and they might not have gotten the 2-point conversion anyway. Just would have made the game a lot closer. So, but I think that when you look at some of these plays, there's something going on because, and I noticed it after all the times, and how many times have we seen the San Francisco Philly highlights? And this morning I was watching it
again
on one of the ESPN shows. They were showing the highlights, and it was where Samuel caught that screen pass, and it's like he had like 7 guys in front of him that kind of made this alleyway that angled toward the end zone, and he just ran right down the opening. It was totally unbelievable. But what I caught was there was a linebacker, I think it's number 53 for Philly, that was coming from the other way, and Debo ran right by him, and the guy literally had to it looks like he almost had to slow up to let him run by him. And all he had to do was wrap him around the waist or legs, and he would have been tackled. And that, if you get a chance, look at that play and see what you think. If you look at that different now, because I think I look at that play different now from what I've been seeing. But
so what's your point to that bringing all that up?
Fixed. having just like that the one guy I sent you, where number 31 slowed up at the sideline.
I saw that, yeah.
Okay.
Buffalo.
And you said, well, he didn't want to hit him out of bounds. The guy was still in bounds. He would have been penalized.
He was, but you know that the refs are looking to call those penalties. I mean, all he had to do was step out of bounds, and they did it last night in a game too. Where was it in the afternoon? Where I think it was the afternoon. I think it was the 49ers and the Eagles game, where one of the players started their hit when his right foot was in bounds, but he was stepping out of bounds, going to step out of bounds, and he hit him, and they called a penalty on him, personal foul. And so
that was number 34 for the Packers hitting Mahomes.
There was a couple. I think there was one in the 49ers game too. And so they call, and you're right, that game last night, I saw that where Mahomes was trying to get the first down, but doesn't the Packer have the right, even though Packers shouldn't have any rights at all, doesn't that Packer have a right to try and stop him from getting the first down by taking up that space? So the problem is that when they're close to stepping out of bounds and they're a quarterback, they get the benefit of the doubt that they were going out of bounds. And I can tell you that I'm sure that guy that was going to tackle thought he was stepping out of bounds, and he didn't want to start his process and then get flagged and then have the play even closer to the end zone.
The guy was 1 yard in bounds when he ran by 31. 31 had every right to hit the guy.
Well, I'm sure he has. That's what I'm saying. It's football. He has every right, if you initiate before they step out of bounds. Yes, they have every right to hit you, to stop you from proceeding or in getting extra yards. You know, the one I didn't care for was the number 94 of the 49ers. He dove in front of Hurts, and if Hurts would have stayed in bounds, that guy would have broke Hurts's ankles. I mean, what are you thinking? You know, you don't need to do that. You don't need to dive to stop him from getting 1 or 2 extra yards. You need to dive to stop him from running down the sidelines, but you don't need to dive to cause a pathway that he can't run through or has to jump over. I just really think that was careless by the 49ers lineman there. That was a bad move in my estimation. But I laughed when you said that the NFL is rigged, and I laughed because I hear that all the time. What I think is the issue right now, and what I don't care for, is a D-back can put their hands up to try and block the ball when they're running with you, even if they're not looking back towards the ball. And all they're really doing is screening you. So if they are standing in your body and they put their hands up, you've got to catch the ball on either side with one arm. And that's not football. And I would consider that pass interference. And the biggest,
that. They call that. You have to be looking back for the ball.
Right, but they don't call it. Many times in the 49ers and Eagles game, I saw the Eagles D-back do the same thing, and they didn't call it. I was just amazed by that. The Packers and the Chiefs game, many times, I've run routes, and I've had D-backs with their hands on my jersey, trying to turn my hips, trying to turn my shoulders, pulling on my jersey to stop me from getting too far away from them to spread the gap. So I get that there's an inner battle between the receiver and the D-back. I get that. I understand that. But when you allow a D-back to be able to turn me off of my route and stick their hand in front of my face to screen me, I think they're taking away the whole pass receiving play of the NFL. And that's where I think that what you're saying, it's rigged. It's what we have. The thing I love, but also the thing I don't care for, is the human, calling the referees human, that them controlling the game and controlling the outcomes is what the NFL tries to avoid. And so I think last night in that last drive, the referees said, we can't control the outcome of this game. So unless it's blatant, don't call, let them play, right?
Well,
But I felt like a few of those were blatant. Yeah, absolutely. So
the guy was on his back before the ball even got close to him.
So why didn't they call the penalties is the question.
Because they wanted Green Bay to win.
I thought there was a rumor or a rumor that Kansas City was the benefit of things like that. They show plays.
I think that Kansas City's had their run. Everybody likes Kansas City. They're still going to make it to the playoffs. But, you got Miami coming up now. I mean, Miami's kind of the new Kansas City. They've got, a very good team, a very good coaching staff, a fun coaching staff. If you watch McDaniel, I know you don't care for him, but
I don't mind McDaniel. I just don't think he's elite.
Well, the reason you don't think he's elite is because he's only been there for a couple of years. I think in 5 or 6 years, when we see what Miami's doing and what they've done, you might have a different opinion about the guy.
I think the reason I think
that it's the NFL's way of saying, you know what? Okay, Kansas City had their run. They had 2 Super Bowls. They've been to the Super Bowl, 2 out of the last 4 years or 3 out of the last 4. They've had the AFC Championship game at Kansas City for 5 years in a row? Am I correct at that?
I don't know about 5 years
in a row. And I think the NFL's ready for it to be moved. And I think this is their way of moving it. They're gonna they're going to keep Miami's an excellent spot to have the AFC Championship. It's warm, it's sunny. The announcers don't have to wear parkas and wear corny looking hats when they're announcing the game. And I just think that I'm seeing too much of it in other games. Even games that don't even matter. There's shit going on.
Well, I think one of the major problems is that not problems. I think one of the major issues is that there are different personalities with each refereeing group. Yep. You hear it before games. You hear this team has called more pass interference calls than any other team. So I think it's like when you go to a sandwich shop, since we're not getting paid for advertising, I won't say, but let's say you go to a delicatessen for a sandwich. If you say onions and the person on the other side likes onions, they throw on a ton of them. If the person on the other side doesn't like onions, you get sparingly, you get onions sparingly. And I think it's the same way for referees in the NFL. I think if they think that draped on a receiver is a bad thing, they will call the interference call. If they think that because they're pushing and shoving back and forth that they're just going to let them play, I don't think you're going to get as many calls. Now, before I was so rudely interrupted there, I was saying that my youngest daughter's boyfriend, I sent him a picture of my youngest.
It's like that commercial. I'm gonna get my.
Your red flag. You're gonna throw a flag.
I'm gonna throw a flag, and we're gonna watch it on the screen, and we're gonna see it, and then you lose.
I will not lose because you'll hear me say that I said my youngest. Anyway, thanks for wasting airtime there. Not quite sure where that went, but anyway, he's a Packer fan, huge Packer fan. Him and his father are huge Packer fans, and I sent him a picture of the defenseman all over the wide receiver beforehand, and his comment to me was, I think, kind of hilarious in the fact that he said it was a makeup call. It was a makeup. I don't
like that when they say that.
It was a makeup call, and then he said, I can't say nothing, because he then showed me a picture of number 37. It looks like it's 34. Number 34 was meeting Mahomes at the first down marker. Clearly, Mahomes' feet are inbounds. Clearly, he initiates the contact beforehand, and they call the number 34 for the Packers. They call him for a personal foul, roughing, unnecessary roughness. Right. And so he's saying it was a makeup call.
And it was a legitimate hit.
Exactly. And so
there was nothing wrong with that hit. The fact is, Mahomes had ample opportunity to just step out of bounds before that.
Right.
But he wanted the first down, and that's exactly where the hit happened, was at the first down marker, and he was definitely in bounds.
He was definitely, but I sent him that picture. So he said that was a makeup call. I didn't send him a picture of the Packer pushing Kelsey in the back, so he was not near the ball where it was ending up. So I should look for his response on that one.
There was no way that the Green Bay could have tackled all of Kansas City's receivers in that end zone in the Hail Mary. They wouldn't have been called. They're not going to call a pass interference when you got 7 guys jumping for a ball. Just not going to happen.
But he pushed.
Too much going on both ways.
He pushed Kelsey before the ball got to that group of receivers and defenders.
But you might have seen where an offensive receiver pushed a Green Bay guy. So, I mean, the fact that they were able to single out one instance, and of course they do that because it was Kelsey. If it would have been any other receiver for Kansas City, it wouldn't have probably even been mentioned. But because it was Kelsey, and they wanted the Kelsey effect on it, and they wanted him to look good for Swift up in the box. they made a big deal out of it, and they weren't going to call that penalty. They weren't.
So why do we have referees then if they're not going to call the penalties?
Well, I mean, obviously they're for the most part 98% of the games are called very well, but every game has a 2% factor in my mind that you're going to get a bad call, you're going to get a missed call, you're going to get a call where it shouldn't have been a call, and that's just they ask for forgiveness and not permission. We missed that call. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you can't see everything, right?
Sure, exactly. I mean, you could literally call holding in every play.
You sure could.
Every single play, you could call holding call. They don't. I mean, the games wouldn't get played.
Well, then that's why they've changed it to you can grab and hold the other lineman. You just can't let your arms extend. So I can grab you and I can hold you. If I'm strong enough to hold you in front of me the whole time, I can hold you right here. Yeah. As long as the play's not running beside me. If the play's running beside me, I think the refs are going to call that every time, because what you're going to do as a defender is you're going to lean this way and I've got a hold of you and now my arm extends. They're going to call the holding, right? So they won't call it when it's away from the play, but they will call it when it's right by the play. And I think linemen have to understand that. And I'm okay with that. I think having the battle in the trenches be a battle, I'm definitely okay with that. It's the clear, having been a receiver, when the defender has his hand in front of your face, you're not able to see the ball. You've got to adjust where you are in the air. And if you can pick up the ball again and get your hands on it, that makes you an elite receiver. So, and Jefferson can do those types of things. But I think to allow someone to run down the field with their hands in the air, trying to tip the ball, that's not football. That's just, playing defense. That's it. So I think that what we need to see is we need to see more consistency from the referees in that what is pass interference and what is not. Some will call it when you turn the hips and pull in the jersey. Some will say you're just battling. I think when my future son-in-law, when we were texting back and forth, the last thing he said to me is he said, "Love can play, huh?" Because I said to him before, I said, this year is the year where you're not going to have a Hall of Fame quarterback for the first time in 30 years, and now you know what it'll feel like. And then Love has a game last night where he throws 3 touchdowns. So,
well, actually, if you've seen, they had a thing on the TV last night. He's actually had 3 games this year that he's had 300-plus yards and 3 touchdowns.
So so my question is, and what I retorted back to him was that is LaFleur's system. You can plug and play a quarterback into LaFleur's system. So,
but you know what? You still
are we looking at a Green Bay team that is going to be dominant again? Because they're young.
Well, that's exactly what I was just going to say, is that when you look at how young they are, which is, the youngest in the NFL, and they're playing this well. I mean, they're 7th now in the NFC in the playoff ranking. Out of 16 teams, they're number 7.
Who's number 6?
The Vikings are.
Yeah, baby.
Well, but anyway, I think when you look at where they are, they're only going to get better. They can't help but get better because of how young they are. And when they start having, I think what Green Bay needs to do, and here's the thing, a lot of their players are on rookie contracts, and I think what they're showing is that you can have a really good cap, you can have a lot of good cap room, and have an excellent team, and not have to worry about paying a couple of guys you bring in that are veterans that can help your young guys play the game and become a lot better. So Green Bay is going to be around for a while, and I think that we all need to kind of get ready for that. And Love, I didn't see it coming, but I've seen him now in a couple of games, and he actually looks really good.
He does look like he's poised in the pocket. He does look like he can read the defenses.
He's not afraid of the pocket.
I think the issue right now, which is not an issue long term, is he can be confused by defensive schemes. But once he has enough experience, I think he will be a very serviceable quarterback. I don't think he'll ever be elite like a Favre or a Rodgers, but I think he'll be very good like a Kirk Cousins. And so the question then becomes, are the Packers back? And we have the Detroit Lions, who have a very good young team also, and our Vikings team is an aging team. So we need to make some changes there. And the Dobbs is not the answer. It sounds like he's not going to be the quarterback this week against the Raiders. It sounds like we're going to go with Mullins, but there's some debate on that. Do we just let Dobbs come in and then maybe if he doesn't do well, pull him and put Mullins in? What's your thought?
I think they're going to start Mullins.
Okay.
And
great.
I don't think I think Dobbs had a shot. He had 4 games for us. He won 2, which is unfortunate, and he lost 2, which is where he is. And I think that they're going to bring back in Mullins, and he knows the playbook. Your word serviceable. Mullins is that, and we get to take a look at JJ and see what JJ can do for us. I don't know if Mullins,
you know what JJ can do for us. The question is does that change Dobbs's productivity? Because you know as well as I do that a quarterback has to trust his receiver, which Kirk Cousins did with JJ. And many times Kirk Cousins threw it up not into a perfect position, trusting that JJ would go get the ball or play defender and knock it down if he had to. So, like I said before, I think Dobbs' issue is he cannot throw people open. He's not very good at a zone defense. He can't read and know where the receiver is going to be and where he'll be open. He's just not that experienced as a starter. He's great when it's man coverage, but when people see that he doesn't know how to do and read the zone coverage, they're going to play that all the time. So the question is Mullins. Mullins has been with the 49ers. He was with them from 2018 to 2020. He was with the Browns. I don't know why Kwesi keeps going back to his old 2 places, the 49ers and the Browns. And then he's been with us since 2022. Last year, he had an 84% completion ratio, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. His quarterback rating was 100.7. He threw for 224 yards. It obviously was 1 game. When he threw for many times, his completion ratio was 64.7 in 2020 for the 49ers. He had 2,437 yards. He had 12 TDs, but he had 12 interceptions also, and he had a quarterback rating of 84.1. So is Nick Mullins the answer, or does KOC have a system just like LaFleur does that he can plug somebody in that understands the system and can play?
I don't believe so.
No? You don't think KOC has a system?
I think he has a system. I don't know if it's a plug and play, though, where you can just put anybody in and they're going to do good. You look at the last 2 games, and everybody was complaining about how KOC called those 2 games, and they were legitimate concerns, legitimate comments, about how he called those games. Now, it's only his 2nd year. LaFleur's been coaching Green Bay for how many years? So I think that it's a growing pain thing that KOC is going through. I think last year was an aberration where we won 13 games, and he didn't have to. He wasn't pressured like he is this year, being 6-6. We've already lost 2 more games than we did last year for the whole year. So I think it's a whole different set of problems that KOC is having this year. Number one, Cousins is out. And I think he's having it's just a process he's going to have to go through to be able to learn what to call, when to call it, and you have to understand that your personnel, for the most case, isn't going to do something just because you call it, And do we even have that kind of personnel where we can do that? And I would say no, because we're 6-6.
Well, and many times, if not all the time, NFL teams call two plays. So if the defense lines up and it's going to stop the first play that you called, they have some term. Most of them have kill that they then go to the second play, or they will screw it up for the defense. And if the first play is good, they'll say kill to kill the second play, so that. But they're all on the same page. And so, interestingly enough, some of the things I'm reading and hearing and seeing is that Dobbs does not know which plays to call at certain times, and he doesn't know where to throw the receivers open to, and that bothers KOC. It bothers him because he's not running the system the way KOC wants him to. And
Right.
So KOC can call plays all day long, but if somebody kills or checks off of it and doesn't do the play that they were supposed to do, then it's really not going to have the final results that he was looking for. So,
Yep.
Not saying anything you don't know. It's frustrating that the Packers again have a quarterback that looks like it could be in the top 10 for quarterbacks, and the Vikings are sitting here going, "Where's our quarterback?" Yep,
Well,
he's good.
That's Minnesota. And you've argued with me for how many years about when I've said
I still argue with you. I
know. You and this. Well, we want to do a competitive rebuild, and it's not a competitive rebuild. It's a content to be competitive. We're playing mostly the same guys we had last year because we went 13 wins. So they thought, well, geez, this is a good team. We won 13 times, and now we're finding out really what this team is, and based on what we had last year, and we got a better defense. I'm not saying one thing about negative on our defense. I mean, if we would have had this defense last year, who knows what would have happened in that first playoff game that we lost. But I don't believe we're as good as what everybody wants us to be based on what we had last year, and we're seeing that now. The next two games for me are pretty much going to be our season. Do we win in Vegas and Cincinnati, or are we going to go 0-2 and be 6-8, and then we're pretty much done? Because when you look at the Packers' schedule, we really are their last competition that they're going to play. And I think if you watch that game last night, out of the 5 games they have left, I believe we are the only team that's going to give them a hard time in winning. And you put the Packers at 4-1, they're 10-7. We're not going to be 10-7. We're not going to be. And, because we're not going to win. I don't believe we're going to win we're not going to go 4-1. I don't believe that. We'd have to win next week, Cincinnati, Green Bay, and one of the games against Detroit. And I don't know if we're going to be capable to do that. And I think we're going to miss the playoffs now by a game, which is going to be kind of sad. But the Packers, I mean, on a bet, I think I would say the Packers have a better shot of making the playoffs than we do.
You were all over the board on that.
I know, and that's what I do.
You went from having to check your door because obviously PETA's at the door because you're beating a dead horse with your content to be competitive issue, to the Vikings and they're not going to make the playoffs, to the Packers are going to take us over. Again, I will argue to the end of days with you, and it seems like it just isn't a concept that you want to believe in. But content to be competitive means you think you have great players right now, and you need a few to fill the holes, right?
Exactly.
And so if you are trying to a competitive rebuild is you got guys that you like, and you need a few pieces to fill in to be that team that could make the playoffs and then maybe make the Super Bowl.
And I'm sorry, who did they pick up at the draft at the trade deadline in a competitive rebuild? Refresh my memory. Who did we pick up at the trade deadline as a competitive rebuild to try and go to the Super Bowl this year? Who was that again?
We didn't need to pick anybody up.
Exactly.
If you noticed, we didn't get rid of Danielle Hunter, which means the team wants to keep Danielle Hunter. So he's a major piece for the Vikings.
Gone next year.
Danielle Hunter will not be gone next year. He cannot be. That'd be the stupidest thing that the Vikings could ever do, because they have him for this year. They don't have him for next year. They need to sign again this year in order to keep. And I think the message they sent was, we're keeping you because we're not trading you. Because if Kwesi does not get something for Danielle Hunter or sign him, he should be fired. That is big money that the Vikings
gone next year. Hunter's gone next year. He's going to hit free agency.
You know, the whole competitive rebuild thing is the fact that they want to stay relevant, add pieces to get to the Super Bowl.
We have too many people, Brad, that are going to be free agency. We got to sign Darisaw. We have to sign. They're going to bring Cousins back for at least one more year, no matter which way they go with quarterback.
They have to sign JJ. They're not going to sign
JJ,
Harrison.
Huge. They
already signed Madison.
So you're not gonna. They're not going to be able.
They have for another 4 years.
There are two. No, what they're going to do is they're going to let Hunter go, and they're going to pick somebody up in the draft as an edge rusher. And I've seen some mock drafts that have them picking an edge rusher in the first round.
Well, you would not be able to be NFL management, executive management, because you do not let Danielle Hunter go for nothing.
You know what?
So not trading him at the deadline means that they're keeping him, and they're reworking his contract.
Thought they might be able to do something, and then what did we do? We went and lost 2 games. So I think that now they're seeing that, oops, we might have messed that one up.
Hunter is the top outside linebacker in the NFL.
And you know how many teams want that? We're not going to be able to be competitive.
I'm sorry to tell you, the Minnesota Vikings want that also.
Right, but we can't pay everybody that we have that we need and pay Hunter what he's going to want to stay here as well. Somebody's going to be gone.
They can position it so that,
I think it's going to be
the 49ers. They just added a big player to them. I mean, where do they get all the money, right? They have the capabilities of doing.
You got John Lynch, who's a football player, coming from that avenue versus Jonah. And that was the big difference of what happened there, is that Lynch understands it, and he brought in
Young.
They brought in Young.
Yep.
But Lynch understands that. Could we have gotten Young or tried to pick him up? Yeah, probably. But we didn't, because they're content to be competitive. And I think we'll find out what happens this week on Sunday, because if they play Mullins and we end up losing because our offense is stagnant and we don't do anything, then I think it's going to be very evident what they're doing, which is going to be playing for the draft to try and get our quarterback this coming draft.
Well, I think they should be playing for a quarterback anyway. I think they should bring back Kirk Cousins for 2 years, do exactly what other teams do, put the quarterback behind Kirk Cousins for 2 years to learn from KOC, learn the system. Since the system is so complex, he needs to learn the system. And then after 2 years, let go of Kirk Cousins, say thank you very much, and move on to the new quarterback, whether it's good or bad. At that point, you've done exactly what every Vikings fan wants you to do. If that quarterback doesn't work out, you know what? That you did the right thing. But to do it your way, where you just get rid of everybody and you take a chance on a quarterback and you've got a less than 50-50 chance that quarterback is going to work out, seems to me like you're throwing away the team. That's where you and I differ.
Look at Chicago. Okay, they took a chance on Fields. We don't know if they're going to try and rebuild
They
around
went
him.
up to get a quarterback. That's what I'm telling the Vikings to do.
Which they might. But the fact of the matter is that look where they are. They're, Chicago is going to probably end up with the number 1 pick and probably the number 4 or 5 pick. They're going to have 2 of the top 5 picks this year, and they still have Justin Fields, who they moved up with to get.
And they're 4-8.
They're 4-8, but you know what? It's a cyclical thing, Brad.
They're irrelevant.
4-8 now. In 5 years, if Chicago wins the Super Bowl, you're going to be the only person in America that's going to say, "Oh yeah, but back in 23, they went 4-8." Nobody's going to give a crap about being 4-8 this year.
5 years ago, six years ago, they were saying the same thing. They ended up getting Justin Fields, and now they're in the same position of saying they need another quarterback.
They've picked up
kind of where
guys.
your argument falls apart right there.
They've got no, it doesn't, because they've got a couple of guys that they just picked up that once they get them more into their system, they'll play better. But more importantly, they got 2 out of the top 5.
They will have 2 out of the top 5
draft picks.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So
they got the number 1. So the question is does Chicago, even though this is SKOL Fanatics, the question becomes, do you move on from Justin Fields and with the number 1 pick, take the number 1 quarterback that you think is there? But now, see, Caleb Williams isn't the big everybody wants quarterback anymore. Drake May moved up, but now Drake May's not the big quarterback that everybody wants anymore. Now it's the quarterback from Texas. Or, sorry, LSU, the Jaden kid down there. Yep. So what I'm saying is even though you have the first pick, you're still got a 50-50, maybe even less than 50-50 shot whether you get the right quarterback.
But you know what? They're taking the shot.
The Panthers will tell you that right now.
They're taking the shot. That's the bottom line. The fact is they're taking the shot. Look at your argument gets killed.
That's the whole point, Tim, is they're taking the shot, right? It's the same thing as doing a competitive rebuild, right? Having Kirk Cousins here for 2 years, getting a quarterback in that you think is your future, molding him, you're taking the shot. You're taking the shot, but you're doing it, and you're competitive along the way.
Really? You call 6-6 competitive? Because we're right in the middle of the NFL?
That's a different discussion we can have, whether or not we would be 6-6 if KOC would not call 2 running plays into the middle of a defensive line and in 2 games in a row. We could have beat Denver. We could have won and beat the Bears last week. So I mean, it's we could be 8-4. Even if you listen to the radio show that is popular in the Twin Cities, they will tell you. They said 2 weeks ago that we could have been 9-3. Instead of what we're at right now. So
sure, we could have been 3-9 too.
When you're talking about plays that went the wrong way that shouldn't have, Kirk Cousins being injured, there's all kinds of reasons
exactly
for the Vikings having.
So we could be 9-3, we could be 3-9. The fact of the matter is we're 6-6. If we
but what happened to Brock Purdy in the championship last year when he got injured? What happened to the 49ers?
They lost.
Exactly. So if you lose your big quarterback, you are not going to have the record that you could have had when you have your star quarterback in there. That's my point, is that we could be a much different team. I just think making the wrong calls at the absolute wrong time, KOC doesn't need to look at other people. He needs to look inward and choose better plays next time. There's no way. When I played college ball, there were 5 plays that when we ran them in the games, over 80% of the time, we got the yardage that we needed. There is no way that you can tell me that that KOC does not have at least 5 plays that are going to get him the yards that he needs. Now, on the other hand, it's execution, right? It's the receiver coming back past the first down marker to get the ball when he shouldn't have to because the ball was thrown late or early or whatever it was. So there's all kinds of things that can happen there. But You know what? It's SKOL Fanatics. So what do the Vikes have to do to get to the playoffs?
They need to go at least 3-2 in the last 5 games. They have to win at least 3 of them.
And that will make us 9-8.
And I think that'll be good enough with what's left.
But then the Packers are going, they're 6-6, and they're going to go at least 9-8.
Yes, they are. Yep.
And if we split with them, then it's your conference record that decides, or I guess head to head, and then after head to head, it's what your record is in the conference. Yep.
Okay.
So then the question becomes: is who has a better leg there to get that nod there? And the results of that are that the Vikings.
Either way, I think the Vikings are probably going to make it into the playoffs anyway, just because the NFC in this middle of the road area that we are in is just not that good this year. And it's just a matter if we're going to be 6 or 7, and do we get beat by Detroit in the playoffs, or do we get annihilated by San Francisco? Those are our 2 choices. So we either get beat or annihilated, one of the 2. We just got to figure out which one.
You know, every time you say something negative about the Vikings, I think I'm going to. I think the fans are going to hear that quite a bit on the podcast. They're going to hear Tim's voice, and then they're going to hear.
Brad, we could surprise people and actually win our first playoff game. I'm not saying we can't. I'm kidding around.
So the Minnesota Vikings in their conference are 6-3. In their division, they're 2-1. Green Bay is 2-2.
Right.
So
they play one more division game, and we still have 3 games coming up in our division.
Yep. So, and they have us to play, and they have the Bears to play. So
right.
We're ahead right now, and we're tied with the Lions. So if we can win outright, we win our last 5 games. We might be able to take it from the Lions if Dallas beats the Lions in the 17th week. How are the Packers going to finish?
I think they'll go 4-1 with us being possibly the 1.
And that gives them the playoff nod, not us.
Well, that gives them number 6, not 7. I think we'll still be number 7 because now, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
you didn't think about it beforehand?
No, I don't know because I just remembered the Rams are now 6-6 too.
They are.
And Seattle is 6-6. So there's 4 teams: us, Green Bay, the Rams, and Seattle that are all 6-6, and 4 teams are vying for 2 playoff spots.
Well, so to answer your question, in the conference, the Minnesota Vikings are 6-3, Green Bay is 4-3, the Rams are 4-4, and Seattle's 5-4.
Yeah.
So we still get the nod. We would be 6 if we all had the same record. But you think that the Packers are going to be 10-7, and the Vikings are going to be 9-8.
Based on the game, I could see Green Bay, and if they beat us, I could see them winning the last 5 games.
I'm sorry, who beats us?
Green Bay.
And who's going to win the division?
Well, I think it's already evident that Detroit's going to win the division.
The Vikings have a chance to go 5-0.
You keep doing that.
Why do I keep doing the Vikings horn? Because you keep saying things against the Vikings.
Well, it's not a negative.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
The Vikings are going to win the division.
No.
As long as they have a chance, I will always say the Vikings are going to win the division.
I don't get it.
Well, that's why I'm a SKOL fanatic, and you are not a SKOL fanatic. This is SKOL Fanatics signing off. Thanks for joining us. Have a great week. Fanatics.
Fanatics.
Fanatics.